Might might be appropriate to start off with a dad joke about the electric bill. How about that?
You got one?
What did the dad say when he saw the high electric bill? I was shocked.
That is a dad joke.
Mhm.
Nailed it.
I think that's a good way to get started. You guys ready?
Let's get us going,
All
Allison.
right, let's get us going. Well, good morning to everybody. We're so glad that you took some time out of your day to come spend it with us. My name's Allison. I am the content creator here at Camp Life, and I'm just excited to share this time with you. We know that there are lots of questions around utility billing, and that kind of starts off with, to bill or not to bill the guest. And then once you do nail that down, you have to decide how are you going to do it in a way that is best for your park. And it can feel like a lot to sort out. So we just want to take some time this morning, just kind of slow down. Let's really look at this topic, remote meter reading specifically, and just see what it looks like, talk about what it is, see what it looks like for the parks, and hopefully answer some of your questions that you have about it. Feel free to put questions in the chat as they come up for you, and we will do our very best to answer as many of those as possible when we come to the end of the conversation. But first, we invited some guests to jump on and explore this topic with us to share their insights on remote meter reading. So if you don't mind, guys, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves. Let's start off with our representative from Wild Energy. Mike, tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Wild Energy.
Sure. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Mike Sorensen. I'm the founder of Wild Energy, and I used to be on the consumer side. That's where it started. I was one of those big RVers that would pull into campgrounds, plug in, and get free electricity. And I thought that was silly. Why would anybody give me free utilities going around all these campgrounds? Because if you think about it, you can't walk into the camp store and get a bag of ice free or a candy bar free, but they'll give me $15 worth of electricity free. And the back then the issue was they didn't have labor to run around and read meters between check-ins, checkouts. So we developed the technology to make that real time, automate it, send it right into other software packages like CampLife, and solve those problems. So that's the genesis of where we started, and certainly we've done a lot of things since the beginning. So we'll talk through some of that during the webinar.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Mike. We really appreciate it. Next, we're going to jump to Kim Mulkey. She's at University Station RV Resort. Kim, tell us a little bit about your park because you guys have some really cool things going on down there, and talk to us maybe about your role there.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I'm Kim Mulkey. I'm the property manager at University Station RV Park in Auburn, Alabama. We are 150 acres currently, expanding hopefully this year, and have a smaller campground as well across our highway. But we were primarily built for Auburn football tailgating in the South here, and during the fall, that's all we do. And so we're 25 years old, and we have almost 900 sites now currently. And we are open year round though, like a normal RV park, monthly, weekly, nightly. But our primary focus is during that 4 months during Auburn football season.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys provide a great service for the community down there. Could you share just a little bit about that?
We do, as far as our guests, what we provide for our guests. We have folks that buy packages here that bring their RVs. Most of our guests are not RVers, they're tailgaters. And they buy a camper specifically to park it on our in our park. And they can park it here year round if they want to. And a lot of them do. We probably have 60% that park here year round. And we provide we go into resort mode with concerts and shuttle buses and bonfires and food trucks and um, a big jumbotron. We rent golf carts out here. Our owner owns a fireworks store, so we do fireworks shows a couple times a year. You name it, there's nothing we won't do out here. So we're going nonstop during that period of time. We own a parking lot in town where we also have tailgating there as well and parking. So we're all about, yeah, like I said, Auburn football and anything we can do to make sure our guests are having a great time during that period.
Absolutely. That may sound like overkill to some other people, but Kim and I are both from the great state of Alabama, so that sounds like home to us, doesn't it, Kim?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, we've got our fearless leader from Camp Life, Tyler. Would you mind to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Hey everyone. Yeah, president and founder of Camp Life. We've been in November of this year. It seems like we're really old for a software company. We're going to be 20 years old, so excited about that. We've got about 1,000 campgrounds across the U.S. and Canada that use our system. And for those that are on the webinar that think, wow, I'm not as big of a park as University Station, we do have a few parks that are as small as 4 sites that are doing remote metering. So we've got this could fit for you and everybody in between. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We want to be respectful of everybody's time, so let's just jump right in. I want to start with you, Mike. If you could just kind of give us a high-level overview of what remote meter reading with Wild Energy looks like.
Sure, of course. Yeah, so we essentially, as I mentioned, how we started the company, we wanted to provide that data off the meter directly to the office. That was the goal. And so we built it as a real-time system. The minute that meter clicks over 1 kilowatt, it's transmitted instantly. And as we started to scale, that started to scare me because we're getting 400,000 meter readings a day right now, and it's a lot. But the cloud infrastructure is scaled well, and it gives us a lot of analytics and interesting information about what's going on at a park. We can see high load, from a pedestal. We can see the disparate energy usage between consumers, right? You've got somebody that's got a small pull behind versus somebody that's got a big Class A with 3 air conditioners. That energy usage and disparity is huge. So we've got a lot of data now that we can use to kind of see what's going on a property. And it makes it fair. So people, when you start billing for energy, you pay for what you use instead of, kind of subsidizing everybody along the way. And then I think the last comment I'd make is that, when people put in meters into a park, the energy consumption drops by 30% because people now become accountable for their usage. So they're less likely to crank all the air conditioners and leave the door open, and they're going to conserve because the accountability has shifted back to them. They're going to get a bill for it, just like your house. You can leave the lights on or turn them off. So yeah, and so the remote meter reading makes it super simple. All that data flows instantly. As we're going to talk about on the webinar, it goes right into Camp Life. So you can do long-term billing, short-term billing, any kind of billing cycle you want because the data is instantly available.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Tyler, I wonder if you could speak to, Mike mentioned the data flowing into Camp Life. Could you speak to maybe what that looks like on Camp Life's end and what parks do with that information?
yeah, Kim, if it's okay, I'll share my screen here and just show kind of like a little bit of our audit dashboard so you can see what that looks like.
Sure.
Uh, see this. Can you guys see that?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
So you're bringing a lot of this data into Camp Life, and this is just our audit dashboard. So you can go down here and you can see we've got some flags along here. Here's a reservation on the site, but there's no usage. You'll see that quite a bit. Maybe they've got a reservation, but they haven't plugged in yet, or something like that. You can also see if we're missing any values coming in on the site, or we've also got a flag if there is a reservation or there is no reservation on a site and you are getting usage. So that's kind of just a quick view of what the audit dashboard looks like from within our system. We also do a recurring billing feature where your system will automatically bill your customer on a monthly basis. And as part of that recurring billing process, we go out and read the meter for your long-term customers. For your short-term customers, if you wanted to, we can read the meter at check-in, read the meter at checkout, and bill them accordingly. If somebody's just spending the night. We also have the ability to have like a base level of electricity that they get. So maybe you don't want to mess with billing them for if they're going to be conservative, but let's say you give them each 25 kilowatt hours a day. Um, and if they bump over that, then you bill them just for what they go over that. So we've got several different options as far as how we can apply that to the guest. And we've done as much as we can to make that all automated. So the check-in process, the checkout process, all of that um, just flows through CampLife.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Speaking of automating the process, Kim, to me, you're the boots on the ground representative here. You're actually using this. So could you talk to us just a little bit about what your electric billing process looked like before, and maybe walk us through some of the pain points that kind of led you guys to consider a new approach?
So we started billing for meter usage, our underinstalled meters, not with Wild Energy at this point, about I guess 7 years ago. And he went to charging at that point, reading the meters and charging people for their power on our fall season guests that were out here, like 4 months at a time. And like Mike said, immediately it was a 30% decrease in power usage, that literally that first month. We had a lot of, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Why am I having to do this? There was some education to our guests to kind of let them know this is kind of the norm, and otherwise our pricing is going to have to go up, to accommodate for that expense. But we were, until we went to Wild Energy, having to have our staff go around and spend days literally going around and reading manually and recording what that meter usage was every month, which was a huge headache. That wasn't their only job. So it was very piecemeal. They go around for a few hours here, then they'd have to stop and, work on something else. Especially during football season, it was a nightmare because of just the sheer volume of people that were out here. And that led to, human error. They could read it wrong. We actually, funny story, had a young guy helping us during football season, and he neglected to tell us that he was dyslexic, and he was reading our meters. And we started looking at his numbers, and we were like, this is not right. Something's not right. And so we were like, his name's Will. Will, what happened? And he admitted that he was dyslexic. So that was a ordeal in itself to have to go back and reread everything he did. But I say all that to say it was a nightmare for a multitude of reasons. One of the biggest reasons why we decided to go with Wild Energy and do remote was, like Mike said, all of the services, the immediate, reporting, the validation that these numbers are correct. No more human error. The immediate, when somebody calls and says, I don't think this reading is right, us having to go back to these manual reports and find out, in fact, we are wrong. The guest is right. And once you're wrong one time, they question everything. You know what I mean? That kind of it devalues our ability to give correct meter readings. And they talk, and they're, guests are, well, they were wrong on mine. Maybe they're wrong on yours because yours is so high. So going with Wild Energy and doing the remote was truly, it changed us in every shape or form as far as just time. Like I said, confirming that these numbers are right. being able to pull these reports up immediately when somebody pulls in and checks in or leaves, being able to pull up the daily usage when somebody is questioning what their feels like their usage is higher than what it should be. And then of course when we integrated with CampLife, we were before that having to manually then go in and enter all of these almost 900 meter readings into the invoicing and then billing. And outside of season, it was time consuming. Inside of football season, when we have everything else going on, it it, it was we were here late nights, multiple times to try to get this information in. And going to the electronic, uh, being able to integrate and literally push a button. Last month, it took 20 seconds to
Wow.
import all of our meter readings. 20 seconds. So it has completely changed our entire way of that aspect of our job.
Wow, well, that's great to hear, Kim. It freed up the staff to kind of stop having to piece that time together to get it all done, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm curious with Mike and with Tyler. Kim named a lot of the big ones because she's got the experience here of dealing with this on a, daily, weekly, monthly basis. But have you guys heard of any other issues that park owners are running into when it comes to managing utility billing manually?
Yeah, I'll go first on that one, Kim. One of the things that struck me when I came up to visit you guys was how many failed meters you had every year. You know, you'd go to read the meter and you'd be like, "Oh, that meter stopped working at some point," and that you couldn't bill for it. So, can you speak to that a little bit about failures
Yeah,
and swapping meters out? And
absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because that is was absolutely true. We would go and not find out for a month that a meter was had stopped working. Maybe we read the meter, on the 15th of that month, and on the 17th that meter stopped working. Well, we didn't have that knowledge until 30 days later when we read the meter again. And we lost that ability to charge back to the customer whatever that usage was, and that happened very frequently. And so the ability that Wild Energy immediately will notify us when there is an issue, whether it be with the meter or a power issue, whatever the case may be, anything that's going to alter something that's going to click with them. We have a portal that I can look at every day and do, but if I miss it for whatever reason, they send those emails and directly let us know, hey, you might want to check this. And we do. And whatever the issue is, it's resolved. And what I also like is the fact that they follow up. There's a follow up as well to say, this is still offline for whatever reason. Did you check it? What was going on? And that helps keep us accountable as well.
That's awesome. Tyler, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was a good point to bring up, Mike, is that these meters will fail you. That's something that we had to add as a workflow within Camp Life as well is, and I don't know if it's happened at University Station or not, but for some of our remote metering solutions, we'll have a meter that will fail, and we've had to create a workflow for how do we go in, track what was the last reading, what was the last date on it, and then we need to put a new meter in, and then we've got a new start value and all that. So, if that happens mid-month in the billing, you can pick up that difference a lot quicker with the active monitoring that's happening and be able to get that meter swapped out. And we do have a workflow for that within Camp Life as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Kim, let's go back to you. You talked to us a little bit about your pain points, and it was a lot. Um, were there any hesitations at the start before jumping in with the remote metering with Wild Energy?
Well, sure. I mean, cost was a huge factor. Cost for us because of just the sheer size of our park. It was a major, uh, you know, investment to make. But looking back at the time that we're spending on our employees having to do what they need to do, the percentage of times that the information was incorrect, the amount of times where we couldn't charge back the power usage because the information was incorrect or we didn't have it. Um, we kind of realized it was an investment that is going to pay for itself, however many years that takes to come back. We actually charge back the customer for the cost, our monthly cost from Wild Energy. So we just CampLife was able to add that back on. So when we have, let's say it cost us $3.50, whatever it cost us, $5 per month for a meter, CampLife was able to once we do that mass meter entry, it automatically charges an additional whatever it might be, $3, $5, whatever it is, back. So we're actually not coming out of pocket at all on our monthly billing, monthly just usage to have the meters anymore. We're charging that back. And it's very minimal. The guest is not even, it's not even noticeable, an additional couple of dollars.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for sharing that. And Mike, I want to kick it to you right quick. She talked about startup costs, and maybe you could speak to that. What should park owners and operators keep in mind when they're thinking about startup costs, when they're thinking about a timeline for a return on their investment, especially for larger parks like University Station?
Yeah, no, those are great points. I'm glad we're talking about that because that's something we talk about all the time. If you take a park that is non-metered and switch it to metering, the return on that investment is always less than 1 year. Always. It's amazing. We run the numbers. We've got spreadsheets that we can do those calculations. You will get that return in 1 year. If you take a park like University Station that already had meters and is switching to automated, that return on investment is longer because you're already recovering the energy costs. And Kim alluded to a couple of ways to even help with that. I know that we've got a couple of park owners that, you can do it a number of different ways. You can embed a small percentage of that cost into the monthly rate, right? So if they're paying $600 a month or $1,200 a month, you tack on, $5-10, nobody knows, right? And nobody cares. And so that not only covers the service fee, but now you're paying back your capital over time as well. And then frankly, nobody ever turns that off or takes it back out of the rate. So, at some point you're actually returning capital to your pool, so to speak, that you can invest in other things. So there's a lot of ways you can financially figure out how to get that return if it's not immediate from an unmetered park to pay for the investment. And the other thing I would say is these meters are going to go 20 plus years. We use the same meters that the utility company uses. So if you think about the last time they came out to your house to replace it because it was old, they're expecting these meters to go 20, 30, 40. We've seen some go, we've pulled meters out that have gone 50 years in the field. So it's a long-term capital asset that's going to be there a long time. You'll spend more on a picnic table, 5 years down the road that has rotted out or fallen apart than on a meter that's under $200.
Awesome. Tyler, what are you hearing on your end about concerns about startup costs or return on investment?
Just what do you value your time and your employees' time? If there's something that can be automated, then that's your time or your staff time. That's something that they can be doing something else. And with the ability for our system, we can automatically add like a meter read surcharge or something like that every month as part of their monthly bill. So you can recoup the cost for that pretty quick. So
yeah,
time value.
Yeah, for sure. And that's Kim, you mentioned, how your staff was doing it before. So I really have a question. Did they give you a party when you presented this solution to them? Did you at least get cupcakes out of this?
They were very happy, especially the first, not having to be out in the rain or, whatever the weather elements were on meter read day. Yeah, they were very happy and thankful. So
Good,
it was
good.
life-changing for them.
That's good. One more thing off their plate so they
Yeah.
could kind of focus in on some other things,
Well, it became such a chore for them till it was. I don't think they obviously they realized it was important to do, but it became such a chore. It was like, telling your kid, you got to make up that bed again, today. And they didn't want to do it. It wasn't, it was a stop in their normal routine that took, longer than they wished in the middle of either 100-degree summer or, rain. So, um, and I think that also affected the accuracy sometimes, where they were trying to rush through it or whatever. So,
Yeah, well, those are great points. Mike, maybe you could talk to us about some other common questions or maybe even misconceptions that you hear from parks that are on the fence about using smart metering.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the biggest misconception is that they're going to get so many complaints and people that, are just up in arms. And that's not what we see at all. There is an initial reaction for sure. But when you explain it, communication is the key. When you explain what's going on, hey, we're putting in metering because, you're going to pay for what you use, not the guy with the big, class A, not the guy that's charging his electric vehicle. And you just rationalize, what's going on every single time the consumer's like, oh, that makes sense. You say, hey, you don't pay for your neighbor's electricity in your subdivision. Why would you want to pay for your neighbor's electricity here in the campground? So if you walk them through the mentality of utilities, they get it every single time. The other thing, people pushback will get is on charging for transient usage. So we've got another park in Alabama that they built it, opened it day one, started charging utilities from day one. So whether you're there, one overnight or a week or a month, and they've had no pushback. Again, it's right in their rates. Description says plus utilities. So you're setting the expectation. And, I've talked to him many, many times, and they just don't get any consumer pushback. It can help with your rate structure as well if you're competing with somebody down the road. If your rates are lower plus utilities, the consumer perception is, oh, I'm going to go stay there. It's a couple bucks cheaper. But you'll make that back when you recover the utilities. So those are probably the big ones. We do get people saying, oh, there's no way I could have used that much electricity. That's not possible. And so, and I'm going to throw it back to Kim. We built an online tool where they can watch their meter. So instead of calling the park staff and saying, I don't believe it, show me what I used. We just made all that data transparent. We have a thing called checkthemeter.com. They can put their meter number in there and they can see all their usage over time, weekends. And I think that's helped a lot as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but I want to hear from Tyler as well. When we talk about that fairness in utility billing, I mean, what does that really mean for park owners and for their guests?
Yeah, I think Mike talked about it, just when you're not billing for your electrical use, at the end of the month, you've got that bill. You've got to build it into your rates. You've got to pass that out to everybody. Whereas if you're using remote metering, um, you you pass that on to the guests based on their usage. One of the questions that came in was, the legality of passing through electrical usage. And that you do need to check on that on a per state basis, or per province basis. Some states have different nuances on how you do that, or provinces. I know in Canada they've got some different nuances where the way the meter, your bill looks. We've had to do some changes in our system just to make sure that the bill is presentable to the guests, showing the start and end values and different things like that. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm an RVer, and cruising around the country, and if it's cold out and it's let's say it's 50 degrees out, and I can crank the furnace on, but I've got a couple little electric heaters. I've got the heat pump in the thing. I'm paying for the propane, and I'm at a park where the electricity is free. I'm going to plug in the electric heaters. It's just, people, that's just the way your mind thinks. So, um, for each of the, check with your local state. Most of states allow for um, the pass through of that charge. So you would take your total bill and average it out per kilowatt hour. And then you can bill each person on what that is. Some states have high and low demand times and different things like that. So you need to check with your specific state on what the legality is.
Yeah. And Tyler touched on something that I think is super important when he mentioned the propane versus the electric heaters, if, electricity is free or not. Um, Mike, how have you seen other ways, maybe you've seen remote meters affect guest behavior?
Yeah, the behavior for sure. I'm going to go back to one point Tyler made though on rate complexity. I think both Wild Energy, Camp Life we're going to have to get smarter about utility rates going forward because they are getting very complex with peak time demands and um, different tiered rates, et cetera. So, as I look down the road at the roadmap, we're going to get deeper into those weeds. I know we have an initiative this year to start pulling bills directly from the utility companies for our customers. So we'll start getting that granular level of detail from the utility companies, and then we'll get smarter about doing the calculations and recovering some of these variable costs as well. Back to your point about the space heaters, it's absolutely the truth. It changes that behavior. People do start using the propane instead of the space heaters. Same as Tyler, I was, in my camper, I had space heaters and we'd use them when the power was free, for sure. Why burn your own propane if somebody's giving you free utilities? So, yeah, the conservation aspect, if I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but over my shoulder, can't see all the numbers. There's some numbers above that, but we track um, carbon savings. So when the energy demand and usage is lower, that our power generation in the United States is creating less carbon, and so there is a green aspect of it as well. We have people that like to boondock or like to conserve. They'll come in with solar panels and their own, power, and they won't use as much off a pedestal. So, they get a savings by doing that as well, running their own solar panels on the top of their rig.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Kim, the last question before we get to some guest questions is for you. What might you share with a park that's considering remote meter reading? Were there any unexpected benefits? Were there any challenges you didn't anticipate? Feel free to discuss those with us.
I think the biggest benefit for us, of course, we were already metering, we didn't go straight from not to remote. Had been already metering for a couple years. The time factor, but being able to validate the numbers for us, and the phone calls from our guests saying, there's no way we could have used that much power. There's no way this is higher than my 4-bedroom house, power bill. And Mike spoke about the Check My Meter or Check the Meter website. I have sent people to that multiple times. And it's as clear can be, where it shows you every day what your usage is. And if it's a guest that was here, during football season, most of our guests come, for home game weekend. And they might stay, several days, but then they go home and they come back and they can see where that usage spiked on the dates they were here, when it went down, when they weren't, when they left something on, like fans or, that kind of thing. People would not, crazy how much a fan, 24/7 running uses how much power, but it does. Lights, when people are tailgating out here, they're doing it big. They're coming out and putting all kinds of stuff out. And grills and gas grills and crock pots and, all of it. And being able to really show that those numbers are correct um, has changed our relationship with our guest. And it's validated that we're not trying to take anything from you. We're not trying to make money off of you. We're just trying to recoup, the usage. And this is your usage. There's still some times where people are like, I just can't believe I'm using this much, but here's the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. And maybe you have an issue with your RV. There's been times where we've directed people to say maybe you need to get something checked on your RV, and we've had people come back and say you were absolutely right. I had something going on with my RV, the battery or whatever. So I appreciate that. So it's just validated us in those numbers and kept those situations where it could be a little tense, if it's somebody that just strictly does not believe our numbers. And when you tell them it's my little maintenance guy that's dyslexic when read them, then, that doesn't bring a whole lot of, but I would question it too. So it's helped in that regard for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Caleb, I'm going to ask you to jump back in right now. I know we have some questions in the chat and we definitely want time to get to those. So if you could help us with those, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. And if any of you have other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat too. I will make sure they get answered. We have a question from Thomas. He says, we have Easy Meter KWH solid stat meter device with a display using CTs on each hot leg. Will the system interface with this device?
Yes, it will. We do have a solution for that. I've got an Easy Meter sitting right on my desk here. So we work with Easy Meter all the time, and we can interface with that for sure.
Very good. Kind of similar to that, Steve was asking, he's saying a CM30M and then 120 volt single phase KWH meter, straight through wiring, full Modbus RS485 networkable made by CanMeter. Can these be incorporated into the software?
I'm not familiar with that one. I'd have to do some research to see if we could link with that guy. So I don't know that one.
Okay, sounds good. Generally, what is the process of integrating with the existing meter look like?
Yeah. So just like a university station, if you have old round analog meters, or if you have refurb digital meters, you do have to swap them out. They have to come out. We build the boards that go inside the meter. So we actually are a hardware manufacturer. We build circuit boards and they go in the meters. And that's what allows us to get all the data and transmit it back. So we can't work with existing, refurb meters. You do have to buy a new meter and plug them into that socket. Or as Thomas mentioned, if you have easy meters or something that we can interface with, we'll certainly do that as well.
Very good. We have a question from Mark. How difficult is it to transfer when ownership of the park changes?
That happens quite a bit, actually. So we do have a lot of transfers every year where people buy and sell parks, and we just transfer the service over to the new park owner. It's super simple, especially they usually keep the existing reservation system, so that goes with it as well. So it's pretty painless and pretty smooth.
Very good. We've got a question from John. Swapping out meters for wild energy meters. Are meters Canada approved?
Yes, they are. So they have to be purchased through one of our distributors in Canada. That's also a sealing agent, but they are Measurement Canada approved. Then they go through the sealing process, which is very similar to California in the United States. California, all the counties out there, Weights and Measures, seal the meters with their own sealing tags, and then they're good to go.
Very good. We've got a couple of questions coming in about approximate price per meter as well. So what are we looking at there?
Yeah, for a typical socket meter, they list for $169. We do have a number of different association discounts, and we love to give those out. So we're not shy about making sure you're a member of one of the associations that'll get you a decent discount. If you're talking about marine pedestals that have this easy meter in them, the whole solution's about $200, so a little bit more for a marine type pedestal, because you're buying CTs and counters and things. There's other accessories, but I would say most all solutions are under $200.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of touched on some of the legality side, but just to make sure we answer that one thoroughly, we did get a question um, about federal and state guidelines. What's a best place for park owners to learn what those guidelines are?
Yeah, every state has a public utility commission that publishes the rules. And I think Tyler mentioned it. You need to know the state rules. But I can tell you that every state and Canada does not allow you to make money on power. It is prohibited. So you have to pass through your cost. What you can do is cover some of the administrative costs um, by either putting that as a line item on the bill, or we advise to just bury that in your rates. As an example, it costs about to have remote metering costs about 19 cents a day. So if you can raise your daily rate by 20 cents, you're covering it. And when I bring that up, everybody's like, "Oh, I can raise my rate 20 cents. That's not a problem." And likely they're going to raise it $1 or more
Yeah,
when the season flips over. So they've got that covered. Plus, when they just do a simple rate adjustment, um, consumers hate line item bills, so we advise try not to line item to death with different charges.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got another question here from Kirk. He said, I presume that RV electric panels without a meter have to be converted with a kit that attaches to the top of the panel. Does Wild Energy have the ability to do clip-on units that do not require a meter?
Yes, you can do it either way. So funny thing is, last year those socket meter kits exploded on us. We could not keep up with demand. I think we did 5,000 conversions, putting a meter on the top. The Easy Meter that I've been showing does have a CT that can go inside if you don't want to put that on the top. It's actually easier to put that socket kit in than CT meters. But if you don't like it, you can do the CT metering. There are some non-approved CT meters out. People try to buy things off Amazon and from other suppliers. You have to make sure that you do get a meter that is certified for revenue grade usage and chargeback. And the one thing to watch for is to make sure that you're measuring the voltage on every pedestal. That's key because it does vary across the park, especially as big as Kim's. We see voltage vary significantly.
Hmm. Good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you. The last question we had come in right now, and still feel free to, if others have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. But looks like the one outstanding one is, can you explain the wireless data collector and how it works and the distance it will communicate, especially in the mountains?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as Kirk is bringing up, the meters are all transmitting their data from these meters to a receiver. Think of it like a Wi-Fi access point, but it is different. It is 900 megahertz. So you do have to put those up on your property. And I can't remember how many we have at University Station. We have 5 or 6 out there to cover 156 acres. It's pretty big. But they do have good range. So sometimes we'll put them up for redundancy because if one of them goes down, we want the other data collectors to pick up the load. We plan for 2,000 feet cover, in every direction from the antenna. It's omnidirectional. So when you start doing Google Map measurements, you look at 2,000 feet. We cannot go through terrain. Most signals can't. So you do have to take terrain into account. But we get really good range. We plan for 2,000 feet, and I think we're recording, but you have to strike this off the recording. We've seen it go 23 miles. It's crazy how far these things will go. But we won't plan for that because we're not, we don't want to have those kinds of issues. We want good coverage and a system that always works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of may tie in just a little bit, but when for Mark, we have a question that says, when you say remote, does that also mean offsite access?
I think so. In other words, right from my desktop here, I can see every meter in the United States, the Bahamas, Canada, everywhere we've deployed a meter. I can read them all here, right here from my desktop. So everything is remote, real time, readable.
Very good. I think, let's see. I'll pull this one in as sounds like a bit of a comment, but we may be able to use it to extend the conversation too. But Steve is saying our current pedestals have up to 8 sites per meter. hence why we're using the small meters in a weatherproof box. We're not sure how we could add full-size meters. So, what would you do in a situation like that, Mike?
All right, it's in my office. This is show and tell.
All right.
It's a great question, but
Uh,
we can meter things many different ways. And so I think what Steve is mentioning is we have boxes like this. So if everybody can see this on the camera here, right? This one's
Yep.
configured for 6 meters. And so you can put this on a panel anywhere you want, and meter something. So if you don't want to do it at the pedestal and you want to do it at a main panel, or you want to meter an apartment building, we can do that. I mean, there's lots of different ways to get metering accomplished, and so a box like Steve mentioned will get that done, and we can meter multiple things out of one single box.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super. So, and he did clarify eight sites per pedestal, and that works. So, um, I think that's all the questions so far. Unless there's any others, we'll give it a little bit more time.
I'm gonna highlight something that Tyler said that I think flew by
Yeah.
really quickly, that I think is a unique feature of CampLife, which is that you guys can help people find sites that have usage with no reservation. I think Tyler showed that in the audit tool, right? So we get asked a lot of times, hey, how can we find people stealing power? And doing it through software is the way to do it, right? There's lots of different gadgets and things you can do. But I think that's one of the powerful things CampLife and Wild Energy can do, is we can show you when there's usage at a site that may not have a reservation. And we've caught that many times, actually. My favorite is a fish fryer down in a Florida property, where we called up the park owner and said, "Hey, you've got usage on a site with no reservation." He says, "No, that's not possible." And they went out there and found, a McDonald's sized fryer that had been, plugged into a pedestal, and all the neighbors were doing a fish fry. So it does happen. And having the software tools to find that type of stuff is really unique. We've seen electric vehicles. You'll have signs in your front office that say no EV charging. Well, guess what happens at 11 o'clock in the dark? They plug into a pedestal somewhere that nobody's using and start charging their electric vehicle. So all of these software tools have really great capabilities to help with park operations, efficiency, et cetera.
Well, very good. So if anybody wants to find out more, where should they go?
CampLife.com or wildenergyco.com. I mean, those are the two sources for great information. We've got lots of blog articles, as you guys do as well, right? If you catch up on things we've developed in the software, and yeah, great tools. And we're always happy to answer questions. Even if you don't work with Wild Energy, we take calls all the time about electrical boxes and meters, and we're here to help the industry.
Absolutely. What I'll mention too, today was focused mainly on, just what this looks like from a in-use perspective. And so we haven't really dove into the software or the capabilities. So if you want to learn more about that, we do have a video up on our YouTube page. So CampLife software, if you search that on YouTube, that'll get to our playlist there. And there's one on max your minute with remote meter reading. So feel free to check that out. That'll give a very good overview of what we have as well. And we'll probably send that out after this as well. So, all right. I think that's it. That's it for the questions.
Thanks for hopping on, Kim. If nobody sends you those cupcakes, I think we'll get some out to you.
Hey, we love them. I'll pass them around. Our guys will still love. I do want to say, I don't want to end without saying that the whole process of working with Wild Energy and of course CampLife, super, super smooth. I mean, honestly, any question, any specifics that we needed to be altered for our unique, campground and what we're doing out here was answered and done. And let me see if we can do that. Yes, we can do that. This is how we're going to make it happen. And I can't, I don't want to end without saying that to both of you guys, that we've been very pleased.
That's the best compliment we could get. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. There was one question Jan had asked. Can we use our existing digital meters? They've got 240 of them, it sounds like. That would be specific to what meters those are. Jan, if you reach out to Mike and the Wild Energy team, they'll be happy to um, find out what you've got and if it'll work or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody asked if is there's a demo of CampLife. The best way to do that is just go to that website we put in, software.camplife.com, and then there's a schedule a demo button right in the top right, and then there's a calendar there where you can pick a time that works for you.
Well, very good.
I
Thank
think
you all
that's
for joining us too. And we'll send out some of those information, some of that information that we discussed too, and some follow-up emails, and we'll hope to hear from you soon.
yeah, thanks
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.